What's up, guys? Wes Piatt here from the Coast Range Podcast. On this week's podcast, we sat down with Gabe and Ariel from the West Coast Advantage podcast and a very special guest, somebody I was excited to finally be able to bring on to this podcast, my wife, Megan Piatt. We talked about safer products, safer skincare, safer household cleaning products, things you guys should be looking for on the back of labels, ways companies will trick us by using things that look a little bit more organic or healthy or whatever you want to put a label on it, and actually they're not. And some helpful tools for you guys to pick the best things for yourselves and your families to make sure you guys aren't putting like toxic chemicals on your body or in your home. So if you're down with the healthy products, this is the podcast for you. We really want to take some time to make sure that you guys go check out the West Coast Advantage podcast. They're two amazing people, Gabe and Ariel, who have been doing awesome things, and they have some really amazing podcasts with some really high-level people in each one of their fields. So be sure to go check them out and give them a 5-star rating and review. And then also, if you guys have any questions about anything that you heard on this podcast, a great resource would be Megan. So hit her up at Megan Piatt on Instagram, and she will answer any questions that you guys have.
You can make her move.
Right? I hope you guys enjoy the episode. RVCA can move.
They seem very comfortable.
Hey,
right there.
the clothing brand, you know, like, it's Ruka. It's a clothing brand, right? It's
I thought it was
Ruka.
RVCA, but then so many people on this coast say Ruka, so I was like, I think on the West Coast, it's RVCA. No, it's East Ruka. Coast. On the East Coast, it's RVCA.
So the further away you get from where it started, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
We had this conversation on the last podcast because Ruka is named after the Sublime song, My Ruka. And then it was like a funny thing because also I don't know if it's in Mexico or in Spain or whatever, but the word is different in different countries, depending. And so, like, some countries it means, like, my old lady. It's like, this is my old lady, my Ruka. Like, I'll be with her forever. You know, she's on my side. And in some other countries, it means slut. So
nice. Same. Yeah.
Same. So, and then we got in this debate, and I was like, yeah, you know, like the clothing brand, Ruka. And everybody was like, what? No, it's RVCA.
Yeah,
and then we went back
it.
and forth. And I just got an Instagram thing today from somebody who said that it is Ruka. But I don't know. The debate continues.
We should just reach out to the company.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody knows somebody.
Solve this mystery.
Somebody's got to. If you know the owner of RVCA or Ruka, please contact me.
Yeah.
And let me know what
we would like to know.
Yeah, how do you actually say it?
Or
send a
or
recording.
the best compression leggings. Either or.
Yeah.
We're solving a lot of questions.
We have questions that need answers.
Yes.
It's funny.
Ruka, if you guys have some compression that helps
Yes.
with varicose veins, please send that my way. Help my wife.
So gross.
Oh, man.
Help.
But hey, we're back, you guys. Second week in a row we're doing a podcast, and we're here with special guests Gabe and Ariel from the West Coast Advantage podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was actually their idea to do this podcast, so they asked, hey, can we come down and specifically talk to Megan about safer products and stuff like that, because they know that she works with Beauty Counter and does that kind of stuff. And so I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it together, and then we can kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, and then we get to mooch off the fun, better microphones.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So this all, well, we remembered that we really wanted to have this conversation because we were at Target last week having a heated debate about which detergent to buy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, so
A touchy
every
one.
time, so I keep going to the natural products and trying to buy natural detergent, and every single time Gabe freaks out because if his clothes smell, it will literally ruin his year.
Yes.
Like, it does not go well for him. So we had a whole heated debate about whether or not we should buy natural detergent, and I lost.
So we tried it once, and
It wasn't.
all my clothes smelled terrible.
It was because the one that it's just the one that I bought wasn't a good one.
Like a dirty hippie.
Yeah, they didn't get washed as well. But I think it's because the one I bought was not a good brand.
But anyway, this brought up the whole point of, like, there's so much convenience in, just like regular products, whether it's deodorant, shampoo, detergent, all this stuff that we're putting in our body. And I know that there's a lot of truth behind some of this stuff not being very good for us. And, I forgot where I heard this the first time, but specifically for athletes, right? And we're doing everything we can to be a little bit stronger, and raise our 1 rep max, whatever, by 5 pounds. But there is a lot of research that a lot of the things that are in these products are doing harm to the hormones that we need to be stronger. So I'm very aware that there's, I guess, the conversation we were having is how do you weigh the pros and cons? And also how do you not fall into the pitfalls of, once these things become mainstream enough, people just throw things on the product because they know you're going to buy it because it says all natural. And what does that even mean?
Yeah, I just heard this thing the other day on another podcast that they said that there was a specific company who sells protein bars. And they decided 5 years ago to, instead of investing extra money into making the ingredients better into the product, that they would spend the extra money into making the product look healthier. So the packaging and everything like that. Yeah. So yeah, totally.
So it's like greenwashing, but for products and food and and all of that.
It's trippy, and I don't know how to make heads or tails out of it, but I thought it'd be a really good conversation to have.
Yeah, and I think it's so tough because there's so much different conflicting information out there, and it's what really do we have to avoid, and what things are not really the worst
big
things.
Of a deal.
Yeah. And then how do you weigh, because those products are expensive, so how do you weigh out which ones you really should start with to switch off, and then which ones can you kind of get away with? Can you really get away with using a non-natural detergent if you're using a natural deodorant? What's the trade-off?
Yeah,
totally. You guys have a lot of good questions.
I
hope I have some answers.
Let's get right to it.
Okay, cool. So a couple of things. Obviously I work with Beauty Counter, which is a safer skincare company. But this conversation where you guys are having all of these questions as far as deodorant, detergent, even food, toothpaste, all of those things. That's a very broad topic. But I hope I can answer some of those questions just by my work with Beauty Counter and what I've learned. So we can talk about Beauty Counter later.
Well, maybe start with what, because we used to put normal Nestle coffee creamer in our coffee, and we're going to McDonald's once a week when we were, not feeling so well, and maybe start with what made you go hey, I'm gonna start paying attention to actually what's in our household.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously with food and nutrition and, exercise, all of that, that all came from you. I'm still a little on the other side. But yeah, obviously we started as just a family, getting into CrossFit, which led then to, clean eating and that sort of thing. But following after that, really for me, how I got into safer products, as far as what I put on my body, and then also cleaning products within the household. And that really came after I had Joey. So after we had our first daughter. And it's funny because I think a lot of people start this way. It wasn't concern for myself. I was still putting whatever I wanted. I would go to Target and buy the, I won't name any names, but just whatever products were on the shelf that were the cheapest, that looked cool, or I heard so-and-so was using them, so I would use them. And I continued doing that actually for a while, even after I started buying Beauty Counter products for Joey. So how it all started really was I was looking for a sunscreen. So after Joey was, I don't even know, she was probably 6 months old. So the first summer that we had her, and it was the one thing that I knew had a lot of, toxins or unsafe things that were put in that product. And I think that's pretty well known. Or where a lot of people start is sunscreen. So I knew that I wanted to look for something safer. So of course I asked my sister, who's the research queen.
You guys want a low price on anything on Amazon? Talk to them. They'll find it.
She is a total research queen. So I was like, hey, what sunscreen do you use? You have 3 kids. I'm looking for something safer. So she gave me a list of things she was using, and simultaneously, it must have been because it was becoming summer, one of my girlfriends, who's also, she was on the level 1 staff, she's a CrossFitter, she's very into, I won't say the word natural, but just healthy, clean things that she does with her entire family. And so she had been posting some things about this company, Beauty Counter. And one of the things I noticed, while I was in my search for safer sunscreen was she posted a picture or like a story about sunscreen from Beauty Counter and why it was safer. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like I trust her completely. She's also a research queen. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, tell me about this sunscreen. Can I put it on, Joey? Is it something, is it made for kids? And she gave me just a little bit of information telling me, that yes, it's totally safe for kids. Obviously, we recommend 6 months and older, not putting sunscreen on tiny little babies. But, and let me know that it was a zinc oxide, so a mineral base versus chemical. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll give it a shot. So that was the first thing that I bought through Beauty Counter, and kind of my like gateway drug into safer skincare, safer products throughout the house, that kind of a thing. So, because once I got that and I really liked it, using it on Joey, versus the sunscreen that I saw my sister putting on her boys, which was like totally safe and zinc oxide, but pure white. Like, I mean, they were covered in white and they're already white boys. And so when I got the Beauty Counter stuff, it goes on a little bit white, but then it dries clear. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. And so kind of giving Beauty Counter a little plug. That's one of the cool things about, like you were saying, how do you know what to choose? Now there's so much stuff out there. There's safer this, safer that. How do you know? I mean, I can speak for a Beauty Counter in particular that we have a lot of goals, but a couple of them are not only to make safer products and get them into the hands of everybody, but also create high performing products. So things like that, like you can buy a zinc oxide sunscreen at Target, but when you put it on, you're going to look like a piece of paper. You're going to be pure white versus something a little bit higher end or more expensive like Beauty Counter. Yeah, and they spend years formulating these products to find the balance of safer and high performing.
Well,
so
that's usually what keeps me from using that stuff. It's like the safer stuff always like sucks.
Doesn't work.
And like you were saying with laundry detergent.
Makes your clothes smell bad.
Totally. Yeah. And I think there's like been a huge, right now we're kind of like in this middle of a shift. Yeah. So there's been a lot of really crunchy people for a long time, right? Like all of the, the people that have used, like they don't use deodorant. They'll just like pat. Yeah. What's the oil? Like all of the hippies use a certain oil. Yeah, well, I don't know if I feel like there's a different name, but they all smell like this certain oil. So like people used to use that, right?
My mom used to do lemon.
Just lemons under her armpits?
Lemons, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, she said that was like a really like natural antibacterial, which is what
totally.
Tells us
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing is like there are a lot of ways that are probably the safest, that are just like purely natural from the earth products. But again, we are a society where we like to smell nice. We like to have our clothes smell nice, or we like to look good. Like I know a lot of women, they don't want to give up their makeup because it works well for them. Yeah. And they're like, you know what? I'm not willing to give that up for something safer because I want something that works well. So anyway, that's like a huge goal of Beauty Counter is to try to find the balance between safer and
that is really cool
performing.
Because so many people, I feel like Beauty Counter now is like popping up more, and it's like a lot more. It's like one of those products that's talked about a lot more, just like in our space especially, and it's really easy for people to just like jump on the bandwagon because like this influencer on social media totally preaches about it, but like it's cool to know that it actually is like a solid company with like a good backing behind it and not just like the new big thing.
Yeah, no. And they really pride themselves on, yes, obviously we're a safer skincare company, but huge pieces of the company, like they have a huge piece in advocacy. So, they have bands of people that go down, literally marching down to the government, trying to make change, and they like speak in front of all of these different boards and all of this stuff to make change in our actual laws and regulations, because there's a ton of scary facts out there. That, like I said, we're in the middle of this change right now, but we're still not we're not there yet. There's not huge changes that have been made. There's small things like Hawaii, what was that, a year and a half ago, I think, banned chemical sunscreen on all of their beaches. So
because it's eating away at the reefs.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't use that. You have to use a mineral-based sunscreen.
How do you police?
I don't know how they police it.
How do you keep track of that? Like,
Well,
do they just not
they just
sell
can't
it?
sell it anymore.
Yeah, they just don't sell it, I guess.
Probably. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was literally eating away at the reefs.
Yeah.
And so it
Right.
started off with surfers going, wait, why are the waves changing? Like, what's going on? And they were
Yeah.
eating away at the reefs. And then obviously there was a whole look into just global warming and why that's happening. But a big one was the sunscreen.
But it's crazy that you're putting that on your body and it's destroying the earth.
Well,
Yeah.
and so then that huge,
It's like a
so that
double
just
whammy.
came
Yeah.
out recently, within the last couple months. It was this summer that there was this big study that went viral, talking about how they did a study on chemical sunscreen versus mineral-based sunscreen and the absorption into your body, and how the chemical sunscreen, I don't remember the exact time, but it was in a very short time, like 20 minutes or an hour or something, absorbed directly into your bloodstream, versus a mineral sunscreen that just sits on top of your skin. Yeah, and so that was a big push too. Like this summer,
Yeah.
I saw a big increase in people talking about sunscreen and safer versus not.
Yeah.
And so as far as Beauty Counter, they're trying to change laws and regulations because we have not changed skincare or the beauty industry laws. I'm pretty sure the date is since 1938.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
Skincare is kind of like the supplement industry. It's like the Wild Wild West in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean they have laws that protect companies from actually divulging their ingredients.
Which,
and
why?
I don't know. And
Well,
it's
yeah.
all money. Yeah.
Money,
Yeah.
dog.
I mean,
So-and-so knows so-and-so who's a council member on so-and-so who is a,
It's
Yeah.
so
when
messed
you think
up.
when you think about the companies that own, it's one big Procter and Gamble owns
Everything.
every brand, right?
Yeah.
It's one big brand that owns all these other ones. So even if you go to Target and you see a whole aisle of options,
Right. It's really
it's
two
crazy that it
or
boils
three.
down to the fact that it's one real decision maker.
Yeah.
right. And that's the thing. I mean, they have, like you said, they have these huge companies who have so much money that they can pay to just we're going to keep that law there. We are not going to budge. We're not going to change it. And under federal laws, trade secrets, it's what it's called. For instance, an example is the word fragrance. You're going to see it in 90% of the products or more, probably more than 90% of your products. If you go home and you turn it around, it's in detergent, it's in shampoo, conditioner, body wash, sunscreen, makeup. It's in almost everything. And that word fragrance is under the federal law. They do not have to divulge what is in there. So that word fragrance can hide, upwards of.
It's so crazy.
It's
gross.
crazy.
Yeah, because it's as close as you can get to just bold-faced lies to the consumer, right?
Yeah.
I just read recently that high fructose corn syrup can now be called natural sweetener.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. So now, people,
Because they just added the added sugar thing to it, which, oh my God.
Yeah.
So now, everyone's been, educated that you don't want high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
You
So
see
now
it,
you
don't.
know, yeah.
But now if it says natural sweetener, that can be high fructose corn syrup. So there's always, that's why it's so hard to navigate a space where, these huge companies are staying ahead of the curve. You can educate people, but then they find a way to, kind of keep bamboozling people, right?
Yeah, they got a lot of money, a lot of really smart people that their job is to make sure that they stay alive and that they keep these jobs alive,
So I guess, the sunscreen's a great example. I feel more it's more necessary to prioritize things that are obviously going directly on your skin, which is why deodorant, that's one thing where I use an aluminum-free deodorant, but I haven't done the all-natural ones because I always break out as soon as I use them.
Yeah.
And again, it's I'm trying to do these things. It's not
Gabe
working
has,
out for me.
Yeah, you had like a weird reaction to.
And I tried like on 3 separate occasions to use like the all natural like Schmitz, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I use.
That's what I use too. Gabe cannot use it.
Only
See,
reason
and you
I
know
don't
what I
like
found?
it is it tears out my hair and my
Yeah,
armpit.
he doesn't like that.
Well, apparently you have to hold
let
it
it
until
sit.
it warms.
Yeah.
Oh.
You have to let
I
it
didn't
sit
know that.
against your skin
It's
because it
on
has
the-
You're
to.
teaching me something.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're only supposed to use a little tiny bit. Like I
Yeah.
watched him the other day. He's like, wow. I was like, wow.
Well,
Yeah,
because
all my
we're-
shirts are like stained.
You can't smell bad.
I know.
Yeah, see, I stink too if I don't.
Yeah, I feel like it's tough too for us because like we're constantly like sweating because we're
Yeah.
constantly moving. So it's like the high performing products are like really important.
I totally agree. Yeah. And so it's, as far as you were saying, like, how do you prioritize, right? Like, how do you know where to start if you just can choose one thing? The biggest thing that I would, like, what I like to tell people, because they're like, I can't change everything in my life. It's the same as diet, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're working with a nutritionist or I'm just trying to get information, like hopefully you don't work with somebody who is like, let's cut out everything and start from, like you, in order to make this a lasting change, you need to start small. And so something that exactly like you said, your skin is the biggest organ in your body. And so changing things that you are putting all over. So a lot of people use lotion daily. I would say start there because that is something that you are slathering all over your entire largest organ every single day.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're finding some sort of safer lotion.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
What about body wash?
Yeah. I mean, body wash.
was my-
And to be totally honest, like the last things that I've been changing are like hair care because to me, for some reason, I'm like, okay, it's not like directly on my skin. Yes, I know it gets on my scalp, but like for me, that's been one of my last changes. But for me, it's more, like things that go directly or chapsticks, lipsticks,
like
things that you're
that go-
actually ingesting. There's a lot of scary things in there. A lot of scary things if you go back and you look at lipsticks and you pull up the ingredients on this website that I'll make sure I get in there. It's the way that I search up everything because obviously I'm not a scientist and I don't have every ingredient memorized and what it does. But there's an app / website called EWG, the Environmental Working Group. Yeah. So I utilize.
I've never used it, though.
Oh my goodness. You can utilize it for everything. You can do 2 different things the way that I use it. First and foremost, I try to just type in my product. So like while you guys were at Target arguing the other day, you could have just pulled up the EWG app, type in whatever detergent you were looking at. It's a database. It's always growing and expanding, so it doesn't have every product yet. But it has a lot of products, so you can type in your product directly into the search bar. And it gives you a rating on a scale from 1 through 9 on the safety scale. So, and it breaks it down exactly like, okay, I gave this piece of ingredient a 1 because, and it tells you why.
Well, that's super useful.
Yeah, and I mean, they also really make it easier. Like the okay ones are green, the numbers, and then it gets like orange and red. So if you have a red number, just set it back on the shelf. And don't buy that. And then you can utilize it a different way, which obviously now working with Beauty Counter, I get a lot of questions from people like, is this safe? Or I tried to pull my product up on the EWG app and it's not there. So how do I know if it's safe or not? And so there's another way that you can look on the EWG for ingredients. So you can actually type in ingredients that look funny to you, or maybe you've heard like paraben. That's not good. Why? And like, this one has it in it. Is it really that bad? And so you can type that in and it'll give you an explanation about the ingredient, what harms it might have, things that it's used for, things like that. So it's a really, really good source of information. And so I use that often. So that's something that you can totally use while you're at Target.
We're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to scan.
What are parabens?
So
I don't actually know. I know that they're bad.
Yeah.
Yes, he actually was asking me about this morning.
I was
so I wrote it
quizzing
down.
her this morning.
So parabens are preservatives that are used in a lot of products, a lot. And they're preservatives in order to slow or stop the growth of bacteria and mold. So people put them in a ton of products, obviously, to keep it quote unquote safe for us, right? So that we don't have this bacteria growing or this mold growing on products that we're putting in or on our bodies. The problem with parabens are that they disrupt our hormones. So
endocrine disruptors.
They are endocrine disruptors. So, our estrogen, testosterone, which then in turn sperm count, all of those things. So that is one of the main reasons why you want to avoid products that have parabens in them. And especially like you were saying earlier, as athletes, right? Here you guys are. You're doing everything you possibly can. Obviously we know some people out there who try to increase their testosterone in order to be better athletes. But so like the last thing you guys would want is to have something else coming, affecting your testosterone levels when you're doing everything else in your power to become a better athlete and increase those levels.
Well, that was originally what got me going, like, fine, I'll use this deodorant, fine, I'll use this body wash, fine, I'll use all this stuff that she was bringing in. It was because she's like, well, hey, if you want to be a better athlete, like, this is going to help. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm in. So it's like finding that, like, what is going to make somebody change, I think, is the big part, does it have to do with their family? Like you said, most people will do it for other people than they will for themselves, or it does have to do with your performance, or does it have to do with even your job, or like living a longer life? Like finding that why will help get people to switch.
Right. And even, not only for men and, performing better in the gym or whatever, I have a lot of women that come to me who struggle with fertility. And that's something huge. It's like they've been trying to get pregnant. They're like, I'm doing all the things, I changed my diet. My stress levels are down, all these things. And I'm like, okay, so tell me about, like what products are you using? And they're like, what? Why would that matter? Yeah. It's things that we don't even think about. And so,
even as like a female athlete, like we have so many women that have had like lost their period because they've been competing for so long that once they're like ready to settle down and have a family, they have a harder time because their hormones are already messed up because they've like ran themselves into the ground competing for so long. But now like they're using all of these products that are also like disrupting everything. So it's like so much harder to come back from something like that. So it's like there's so many ends of the spectrum of people that like would use.
Yeah. And and like I said before too, like it's something that I would never tell somebody to change everything. Kind of the rule of thumb, like that I tell people when they ask me, like, where do I start? What do I do? Not only, obviously changing things that go over all of your body that you use really frequently, but also the way that I did it. So after I bought that product for Joey, I was like, oh, well, I'll try something. And so the way that I did it and how I really started like buying more and more products is when I would run out of something. Instead of going to Target or going, shopping on Amazon or whatever, then I would just replace it with something. In my case, it was Beauty Counter, or the same thing like within our household. So instead of, like counter cleaner, we then started buying essential oils and, creating our own cleaners or things like that.
I feel like that essential oil spray that we use like cleans better than like the Clorox wipes that we have and stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So we use, we have, it's all preference, of course, like whatever company, I'm just like all about whatever you use as long as it's safer. We use a lot of Young Living oils and which again is just a brand, but, and we use the Thieves cleaner. I don't know if you guys have it or use it. It is the coolest thing ever. You can make it yourself from like the Thieves oil, but the actual Thieves cleaner comes in a jar or in a little bottle and you use a cap full. So like, it's like a teaspoon.
We've had that
thing of
bottle
water
for like a year probably.
Yeah, and it's 3/4 of the way full. So, it's like the coolest thing ever. It lasts forever. It smells so good.
So you just mix it with water?
Yep. You just put it in a spray bottle.
Yeah, just like cleaned all of our floors the other day.
Clean anything.
Really?
Yep.
It's
anything.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's like the one thing I've found out a lot, like since Megan started doing this stuff, is that like there are a lot of really cool products out there that I'm like, why haven't I been using this? But like it's getting through the marketing and it's getting through all the other brands and getting to it. So like I'm lucky because I have Meg and I'm just like, well, what do I use with this? And then she looks up and tells me, but not having somebody to go to all the time. And so like that EWG app is really awesome. Or just like having connections with people that are trying to do it the right way. It's like why you go to it's like why you go to a CrossFit gym versus going to a Globo gym. You go there because those coaches know what they're doing and what they're talking about. And so find somebody that knows what they're doing and what they're talking about in this industry and they will lead you the right way, you know?
Yeah.
It's such a bummer because it ends up being such an uphill battle for the companies that are trying to do the right thing, because, you know, they get to the point where, you know, if they're being successful, you know, they usually get presented with, you know, a number that it's really hard to say no to. And these big guys in the space, and this is more speaking from my knowledge of, you know, the food industry, you know, like these big people in the space will buy the small companies, and then, you know, the things that happen under the hood, once you become a part of this big company, you know,
and they'll buy it privately too, so you don't even know it's bought. Like, what was it? Annie's? That brand Annie's, where they have like the mac and cheese and they have all the, like the really organic and healthy stuff, that got bought out for like a couple bill, I think. You know, by some major company that.
Well, even our X Bar ran into issues. Remember when they got bought out, because there was such a high demand for the product, it was really hard for them to keep the level of like quality of ingredient that they had, because there was so much more demand for it. Yeah. So like that's kind of the issue, is that it's like a double-edged sword. Like, do you want to reach more people, or do you want to like? Yeah.
Well, that's, I mean, you know, really Gabe Piatt, they're amazing at that, where like literally they stopped selling their carb supplement because it wasn't up to standard anymore, because the demand for it got too high and they couldn't produce enough. And so they just stopped selling it. And I was like, what? Like, I love that stuff. What are you doing? And they just did the exact same thing. I got an email last week about the vitamin C product they have.
I love the vitamin C.
Luckily I have like 12 boxes of it left, because they discontinued it because it wasn't up to their standards. And so it's like these companies like Beauty Counter or Peori coming out and be like, no, we are not going to give in to money. We are doing the right thing for the right reasons, for the right purposes. And it's like finding those companies and then latching onto them, you know?
And Beauty Counter's done the same thing. We've had things on, you know, I would say on our shelf, which we do have a couple stores actually now, so we're not solely online. But I mean, the same thing. We've held products, and we do so many safety checks. I mean, crazy amounts of screening on individual ingredients, and then ingredients, once it's combined with the other ingredients, we rescreen. And then once it's in the packaging, because sometimes a package can, can change the formula. And so, I mean, and not only that, so that's like the process to get the actual product on the shelf, right? After that, once the product's on the shelf, it's continuous screening. And so we've removed products because, again, it wasn't up to our standard. Research had changed, you know, and we found out, oh, wait, that ingredient or that formulation is not up to our safety standards. And so same thing. Yeah, we've pulled things off the shelves as well, just because of the safety standards that we hold, not that the United States requires us to hold. So like Beauty Counter as a company bans upwards of 1,500 ingredients. And I'm pretty sure it's like under 30 ingredients in the United States that are actually banned.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the European Union, they're much closer to like the amount that Beauty Counter bans. And I mean, it's, you know, I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's, you know, probably within like the thousands.
Wow.
Beauty Counter goes a little bit above that. But yeah, the U.S. is so far behind when it comes. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's lax or if it's the money that's put in.
Right.
You know, like that they're like, nope, never mind, money for the government means
like,
more
this is better than it's not worth it.
Yeah.
What about like using plastics versus glass?
So totally, that's actually where Beauty Counter is going now. So
I saw that with their
it's
product.
A huge push, like at the end really of really all of like 2018, we started making the big changes and actually launching like next month, I believe, we repackaged all of our main lines. And so everything is moving into glass bottles. And then we're also changing over things like if there is, like, for instance, the overnight resurfacing peel, it's a glass bottle, but it has a little plastic cap that goes on top. And so something that they're repackaging that, and the only change they're making is instead of the plastic top being 1.5 inches tall, it's now like 1/2 inch tall. They're minimizing the amount of plastic in every aspect that they possibly can.
Interesting. Is that more for like the environment's effect?
Absolutely.
Or is it for like, because so you know how there's like this really big shift now towards moving away from plastic containers and like moving towards like metal and glass bottles and like storage containers, stuff like that. I was wondering if
like you
it's
mean as
the
a
same.
safety aspect
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
sustainability?
Yeah.
I think probably both. I
Yeah.
mean, they're really the way that they're talking about it to us as consultants, and I think the world is more of a sustainability push that like they are aware and they want to do what's best for our earth.
Yeah.
And we're even talking like in the future as far as like refillable bottles. So they're trying to figure out a process on how would that work for people
do you send
to
it back?
Yeah, like and what does that look like? But then of course you come into, okay, so then is that what's worse, the shipping back and forth,
Yeah, there's
or
so
the
many
just buying a
variables,
new
right?
bottle?
Yeah.
And so there's all of that. That's obviously all the kinks are being worked out. But that's like in the future, that's already things that they're talking about as far as sustainability.
Yeah, because I know the difference plastic, like that's really important in food,
Right.
Especially if there's
If you're
a
heating it up.
Right.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
heating
You wanna
element
heat
is what
stuff up.
releases the BPA out of the actual plastic.
Right. Because we had that issue with protein containers, you know, because some of this stuff is sitting in warehouses or trucks where we have no idea what the temperature is, and you know the protein might be super like tested and high quality, no heavy metals, no
plastic.
toxins, but if you imagine it, it's essentially being heated if it
Sitting
spends
in a reloading dock in Arizona for 3 hours. You
exactly.
know?
Yeah. So it's that's always been a really important consideration on that side of things. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's the same effect, maybe not to as great of an extent since you're not ingesting this stuff, but I'm sure it does.
Well, and that's why we do the safety testing. We do all of that screening after it's put into the packaging.
The container,
to make sure, you know, and all, of course, at all different temperatures and all of that, just to make sure that it still holds up to our standards.
So another question I had, toothpaste. So I read...
Meg just got a new toothpaste. It's
that
really cool.
I love.
I'm like really stoked on it because of that little roller thing. That's it. It's got this little roller thing you put on the end of it, and as you go through it, you roll it up and you roll it up. And
Because
so
it's in an
all of it
aluminum,
out.
like a solely aluminum. There's no plastic or anything on it. So it's like,
cool.
you know, it's kind of like stiff.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit hard. So yeah, it comes with like a metal
That
roller
is so cool.
that you just roll
You
it
have to
on.
tell me
So
what
is
toothpaste
is
is.
fluoride not good for you?
You know, I don't really know.
I don't know either. I've heard,
I asked
like,
my dentist this last time I was there, and they were saying that like the studies just say that there's not enough fluoride in a toothpaste or in the thing they give you to actually cause any type of like if they pricked your blood and pulled it out, they wouldn't really see a difference. That's coming from a dentist who's probably obviously very biased, you know,
Right.
but that's what he told
Well,
me.
because we bought a natural toothpaste that had no fluoride in it, and Gabe swears that it gave him cavities. So now
your food
I'm
gave
the
you
only
cavities,
one.
but that didn't help.
That's what I said. Now I'm the only one that uses our
Oh my
natural
gosh.
toothpaste. We have two different toothpastes at home
I-
because Gabe will not use the natural one.
That's funny. And I feel like we've gone through a handful because I haven't
Yeah.
been happy with them. And that's,
I know I keep trying different ones.
She tried that charcoal one, and I
That's
was
what we
Yeah,
did.
that's what I
Dude.
have.
I
A
didn't
charcoal
like
one
that.
now.
Not cool with that.
So the thing is, and this
weird.
was a question that you had. You were like, okay, well, I bought this deodorant and it doesn't work for me. Like, honestly, it's just like everything. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to find some brands, and some brands, like I was kind of saying, right, there's been crunchy people for a really long time.
What'd you say,
and
crunchy?
Crunchy, yeah. You know,
Yeah,
like,
like granola.
Like granola people that, like, you know, they're like super hippie. No.
It's a great descriptor.
That's a thing.
It is a thing. I
I've
didn't
heard-
make it up.
I've
I mean,
heard
I'm not
granola.
that funny.
I've never heard crunchy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, crunchy
Like
is the
people.
term, and
Yeah.
then granola, I think, is like
But you know, so there's been people that have used these things, but they might not be high performing. And so
Yeah.
the same thing as far,
Right.
I mean, that goes for deodorants, for toothpaste, for where these companies are trying, right? Like they're like, hey, we'll make this safer, but
Yeah.
you're like, I
You're
don't
like,
actually
this
want to
did
use
not
that.
work.
You're like, my clothes still stink from that laundry
Yeah.
detergent. So
Yeah.
same thing for toothpaste. Like we've tried a handful, and I just bought, and the reason actually I bought this toothpaste, it's called the company, in case anybody wants it, it's called David's. And the reason I tried it is because Beauty Counter offers their consultants they work with other companies, and they give us a discount on other
to try.
safer companies' products. So things like nail polish and deodorant and toothpaste and all of those other things, they give us an option as consultants to buy through. It's under
That's
Beauty
cool.
Counter, but it's through them, and we
Yeah.
get a discount. So that's why I decided to try it, because I want to see. They also have a deodorant. I'm blanking on what it's called right now, but I haven't tried it yet. So I've been pretty happy with
Schmidt's is
the.
the only one we've tried.
No,
And I've
we
tried
tried.
on 3
See, I
We
tried native. Yeah.
We've tried native.
Oh, that's also the one that didn't work. I swear
I
I've
think-
tried everything.
You just
Well, now I
You
use
just
an
very
elite
high
really.
standard.
Yeah.
He doesn't though. This is the whole thing. Gabe thinks that he smells, and he literally never smells. So when he
I'm the
freaks
opposite.
out,
I don't
Using
think
the
I
right
smell, and I
thing.
always,
And you always
smell.
smell.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
Wes, you need deodorant.
I'm like, I smell great, and everybody's like,
a gas mask on.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing is like, I feel like it's the same as like,
Yeah.
Supplements or food or
yeah, but
whatever
at
you're
least
going to do.
at least you're using one that has no aluminum in it,
Yeah.
right? Better
Yeah.
than just being like, well, screw it, I'm just going to use this.
Right.
Well, because we found out that there's a difference between antiperspirant and deodorant. So like that's also a really big thing.
What's the difference?
Well, antiperspirant stops you from sweating.
Okay.
And a deodorant stops you from smelling.
Oh, okay.
So you
So
kind of want both, but not really because you want to sweat because you want the
I was gonna
toxins
say,
to come
yeah,
out
but
of
you
your
wanna
body.
sweat.
So like it's just a matter if you're a really sweaty person.
Yeah, but imagine like, what are they putting in there to make you stop sweating?
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was just
that
thinking. How
freaks
does it
me
make
right
you
out.
That's another
sweaty?
big
Yeah.
red. That's always a red flag, right? With any like supplement or anything that claims that it's going to do something that completely reverses your body's natural way
Right.
of doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that's pretty maybe for us more like just common sense red flag of like, well, I mean, should
Like,
I be
my
putting
body-
something on that makes me stop sweating?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my body is designed to sweat for a reason.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you're going to have a
would-
heat stroke because you had antiperspirant on.
Yeah, and I mean the same thing, of course, like with skincare and all those things. Like, okay, so it reverses my wrinkles. Like, what? Like, how
why?
is it doing that? Like, what is in there to make me,
Yeah.
like fill in my lines?
Yeah,
yeah. So same thing. I mean, it's across the board. But for you guys, as far as like not fighting in Target next time, yeah, I mean, I could give recommendations.
the
Like, I
website-
love
the web-
Seventh Generation. They're also a B Corp.
Did I not pick that one out?
So,
Is that what you guys use?
yeah, it is what we
Come
use for
on.
detergent.
Look at that, Gabe.
But the thing is is they are a B corporation, which holds really high standards for companies. It's very hard to become a B corporation, and Beauty Counter is also a B Corp, and they have to constantly not only hold up to safety standards, but also be giving back. So to communities, or whatever that might, whatever organizations, but it's a constant, like, they are giving back and making this world a better place. And so Seventh Generation is a B Corp, and Dr. Bronner's is another brand. But the thing is they don't necessarily hold up to our standards. So like there are Seventh Generation products that do have fragrance in them. And so like for me, I'm not going to just buy a Seventh Generation
Just
product because it's under that brand. I still turn it over
And look at
and
what-
look. So the one that we use, the detergent, is like the free and clear. It has no synthetic fragrances.
Oh, man.
Gabe's not into it because he needs things to smell.
Stressing out.
Then why don't you get an essential oil? You can get
Yeah.
lavender or lemon or something and drop
just
it
put it in
into
your
your
laundry.
laundry.
There you
Or
go.
on your wool, like dryer sheets. That's another thing. We shouldn't be using dryer sheets. And so it's filled with chemicals. So
jeez.
we have like the wool dryer balls. And if you want your clothes to smell good, you can just take essential oils and drop them into your dryer balls and then dry your clothes.
Man, this is a losing bet. Tide Sport is getting no love.
No.
Oh, gosh.
The little
So
pods,
Gabe tries to put like 4 of the dryer sheets in the laundry at
Oh,
all
I used
times.
to do that too. Like,
Gabe puts so many
tons
of them.
in there. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
They
They're
smell
not-
better the more you put in.
Oh, do you see what I'm dealing with?
Oh, man. We got to get you a subscription to like Young Living.
Yeah.
And get some essential oils in your
This is
life.
a good conversation. No, but
Yeah.
I mean, coming from like a world where being so well versed in like the supplement side of things, like there is so much truth to all this, and it's just it's funny because like I spent so many years like banging my head against the wall trying to talk to people about like why they shouldn't be getting their fish oil at Costco even though it's cheaper.
This is how I feel about
So it's the same.
detergent.
So it's the same thing, and I get that, but it's funny how like guilty. Like you have certain conveniences that you're like
Totally.
so like
Well, and they're
have
so
such a hard time like letting go.
yeah, they're so good, and you get so used to them because
Yeah.
they're so
Yeah.
good, and you like the way
you
they
know that
perform.
yeah,
and,
you know they work. They're tried and true. Whatever.
Yeah,
They're
but it's interesting. And then like in the big picture, like there's toxins just everywhere, right? Like it's in
Yeah.
our water, it's in our food, it's in the air, depending on where you live. And I think that people really just have to look at it as like you said, you can't change everything, right?
Right.
Like you can't be 100% toxin free. Like
No.
we live close to cities, there's cars, everything. Like there's so much stuff that's out of your control. But I think, you know, as many of these little 1% changes that you can kind of like, you know, put in your pocket, it really does make a difference at the end of the day.
For sure.
And I do think that this like product side, especially things that just go on your skin, I do think that it's something that a lot of people don't think about. I think we've done a good job as like a society to kind of care a little bit more about what we're putting in our body.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been huge change, but I think that, you know, stuff that we're putting on our skin or, you know, using to clean our clothes or our houses is still very green. I mean, you know, guilty. Like I'm so well versed in this stuff on the nutrition side, but, you know, I'm guilty of all the things you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a huge shift right now. Like where like I feel like how many years ago was it where like the food industry changed, right?
Yeah. And it's
natural,
still,
organic, you know, all of these things, non-GMO, all that stuff became really widely popular. And now that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like there's a shift.
Yeah.
There's now this awareness that's coming to what we're putting on our body. And the problem with that is the same thing that you guys see within the food industry. So that quote unquote greenwashing, you'll like go natural. That word, like, what does that mean? You know, like that's still,
this is a natural paraben.
Yeah, this is right. This is natural paraben. And the thing is some of the ingredients that we ban are natural. Yeah. They are things that just happen in this earth, but they still have a horrible, you know, effect on your body. And so it's something that we ban. And so that's, you know, something to really be aware of. And that's why, like, if you can walk away from something today, just really look at your ingredients. It's the same thing as food. I mean, just turn it over, look at the label. If you see, you know, fragrance, parabens, you know, any of those things, sulfates, it's like SLS, any of those things, then just don't get it, you know, because it really is. They'll make it look real good, you know, even I don't know if you guys have noticed, we shop at Target a lot, but also Target online. Like, I have the app on my phone, and there's an entire section. And you know who else did this is Sephora. There's an entire section, and I can't think of what each one of them are called. I think Target's called like Clean or something. It's like this green label that they have now put on certain products within the store. And if you search on the app or online, you can filter by clean products, and it'll list out all of these products that Target is claiming to be clean. But still, there's things in there that are not clean. And so it's really, you know, like, obviously I would tell somebody, like, sure, shop there. If you're not going to turn it over and look at the ingredients, like,
start
that's
there.
Step one, you know, shop on the clean section at Sephora or the clean section at Target. But, you know, to go a step further, like I said, like, 7th generation, I love it, but there's still fragrance in some of the products. So, I mean, starting small, like you said, but that whole, like, being aware of what you're actually buying is super important.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. That was super useful.
That was awesome.
Probably change how we shop.
And if you have questions, I mean, like,
Megan said.
Well, and like I said, like, it's just like CrossFit, right? Like, we choose gyms based upon coaches and their knowledge. Like, if you ever have a question and you're like, well, we're here at Target Fighting and we don't know which one to get, like, seriously, reach out. There's plenty of Beauty Counter consultants that are very well versed on all this stuff, because Beauty Counter as a company educates us all the time with all of the up-to-date things. And so, you can reach out to, I mean, there's a zillion of us across the country. So you can find somebody, or you can find me.
Yeah, where can they find you?
Well, on Instagram, it's Meg Piatt, and it's probably the best place. Or you can always email me, Megan@coastrangecrossfit.com.
Cool.
One last question. Do you guys, like, how do you guys deliver this, or do you at all, to the members here? Like, is this part of kind of a conversation? I know that it's kind of so high level. Like, we're trying to get people moving. Nutrition's a big place. And do you think that there is ever kind of a place to start educating, you know, with the incredible platform that, you know, we have as coaches and you as a gym owner?
Yeah, we put it into, it's a very quick kind of thing I throw into our on-ramp classes when we're going over nutrition with people. Like, we're I do a very basic nutrition lecture, just to understanding of, hey, when you eat food, this is how it breaks down, and this is like gain weight or don't gain weight. And also you should be thinking about the things you're putting on your skin too, because that causes an effect as well. And I just leave it there, and then if they want to ask more questions, cool, we're here for them. And, and we put stuff up too. Like now we have a part B that we do, and it's kind of a, like once a week we put up, most gyms you go into across the gym and it's like part A, 5 sets of 5 back squat, part B, this Metcon here. And at the level ones, we like really try to preach like not to do that. Right. And so we started making kind of fun of it in a way and putting a part B, and the part B says like over the next 24 hours, eat, 3 different veggies, or like over the next 24 hours, make sure you get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
or
like
something
download
like that.
the sleep app and like track your sleep.
And
or
that's like
whatever.
our part B that we'll do a lot. That. And like, so every once I'll throw in something about like that kind of stuff on the part B. And just very slowly, just kind of...
Yeah, it's a real creative way to deliver those little nuggets.
Yeah, because you don't want to sound like salesy either. It's easy to come on here and make it... You hear the word beauty counter 50,000 times or something like that, or Puri, and it sounds like a sales thing, and that's like coming from a generation that was all about sales. Right. And now I think this new generation is more about... Not about making money, not about sales, but more about giving back to people, feeling fulfilled, and knowing that you're doing a major difference in this world is what actually fulfills us. And there just happens to be companies that are doing that. And so we promote those companies. Right. And you don't want to like in the gym be like, part B, go buy beauty counter, or like that and stuff. And so you just try to do it in a way that it's like making sure people understand that you really want the best for them. And this is what we found is the best. It's like why we sell supplements here at the gym. Like, I don't believe that people should be taking supplements unless their nutrition, sleep, and stress levels are completely dialed in. Right. And then if you want to get better, we'll talk about supplements. But I know people are going to buy supplements. So I might as well have the best ones here at the gym for them to buy.
Right. Lowest barrier to entry.
And the same, as far as like Wes and how he does it as well, like he'll do like a very brief overview kind of a thing in the on-ramp. But also some of his personal nutrition clients, like they've had conversations in a one-on-one setting. And so I'll get, emails that list out, like he'll tell them like, send your products, like all the names to Meg, and she'll go through and say like, yep, good. Like keep using that one. It's totally fine. Or if you're looking for a change, I would swap this one out for something safer, that kind of a thing.
Out the Tide sport.
Yeah, totally. And then also like when I first started working with Beauty Counter, obviously people like started talking about it within the gym because they knew that I started working with the company. And so I held like a information, like come check it out. Like I've had a lot of questions. So instead of like me talking to each individual person, we just got some wine and some cheese and crackers. And so like we just did like a little event here at the gym because I had a lot of...
There was like 50 women upstairs.
Seriously.
Like, just having the time of their lives. It's funny.
So anyway, so that was another way too. Like, but I really did that at the beginning just because I had so many people asking me questions. And I was like, let's just all come together. And I know you said women, but we do have men's products.
You do,
too.
But there wasn't any up there at that social.
We do have Counterman. Yeah.
Yeah, I use all of that stuff.
I know. So anyway,
I do think that it's like important to note that like if you like this is like the tip of the iceberg. Like if you're not doing all of the base stuff first, like this is not going to help you. Like if you're meal prepping but you're putting like pizza in a glass container, like the glass container is not making the difference there. So like it's just important to note that like no matter what you do, you still have to have that like base knowledge of your nutrition and your fitness before making all of these extra changes that like won't make a difference if you're not already developing that base level of health.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. That was awesome.
All right.
Oh yeah, no, thank you guys for coming down. Hey, and thanks to my wife for actually coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
thanks, Meg.
First one in the books, guys.
I'm hoping this will be a snowball effect and I can get her on here to do, because she's she's fun to talk to and she's really smart. So
Nailed it.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.